I'm good. I'm good. How you doing? Sure. Yeah, sure. Oh, okay. So you want the camera off altogether? No problem.
Hi there, how are you? Yep, yep, I'll just do that for you now.
Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm on a mission to make CTO coaching a standard rather than a luxury. As a coach, I help CTOs from startups to enterprises to lead with clarity, confidence, and strategic impact. As a podcaster, I've been publishing episodes of the CTO Playbook for over a year with guests from many varieties of technical leadership and a playbook at the end of every episode. I've been a CTO for the last 12 years, and I continue to work fractionally too. So I managed to keep my skills, knowledge, and experience up to date. Adrian.
Hi. For some reason, I'm getting things playing back in my ears, but my name's Adrian. I don't know whether you can hear me okay, Anton.
Yes, we can, Adrian.
Okay, great. Let me just try and blank the... Okay, sorry. My name's Adrian. I was just getting an echo, which I haven't worked out why. So I run Blockmark Technologies, which is a software as a service. I've had experience starting and growing both a software company, but also a product company, which has involved physical products linked with software, database, and electronics. And also have written a book called Start to Exit, which is available on Amazon if anybody's interested, but basically takes you through some of the things I think you need to do to systemize your business as you start in order to get it ready so that you can scale it and then exit it when the time comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's see if Chris can hear us. Are you audible, Chris?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Take it away, please.
Wonderful. Yes, my name is Chris Bracegirdle. I am a startup co-founder, multiple-time co-founder, technologist. I have a machine learning PhD, so I was doing it way before it was cool. My current project is a company called Foretell AI. We are a voice AI platform producing vertical integrations in various different industries all over the world, including Africa and the US. So yeah, I know quite a bit about technology and AI applications. Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. How about some stuff when it comes to what is important early stage for startups on, I guess, both product and tech. Perhaps if we can start with Adrian and then Chris and then Adam. Let's try and keep it about a minute each throughout all the answers that we give, by the way, in the session. But if we can come up with one do and one don't each, I think that could be helpful. Also, don't worry about repeating what you might have said before, Adrian, since you've been kind enough to join us previously as well. And please don't use the same do and don't for the same reasoning, I guess. So Adrian, Chris, and then Adam, please.
Okay, yeah, well, I would say do plan what you plan to launch as your product. And what I mean by that is talk to customers and potential customers ahead of time so that you're not just launching what you think people want, but actually you've tested it in the market, either as a prototype or as a concept. But the reason I say that is developing and launching a product is expensive. And even if you think it won't take very long, that iteration and actually having something that can work can be really demanding on resource. So the more research you can do, the better. And I would also say, don't underestimate how long it takes to launch product, even a software-based product. They are really hard to get right and refine.
Thank you for that, Chris.
Sure. So I think in terms of don't, let me start there. I would say don't build too early. It's very tempting as technologists to think, I know the solution, I know what needs to happen. I want to go ahead and build a thing. But I think most times that's a mistake. Building is hard and takes time. And we should really only aim to build the thing that customers actually want. And that's where I get to my do, which is do talk to customers, even if you don't have that product, especially if you don't have that product. Talk to potential customers. And that's a hard thing to do. So you need to find them. You need to get them to engage with you and tell you what they need, because fundamentally, the customers are the only people who are going to tell you what's the right thing to build and what's the thing they would pay for. So start out as soon as you can, build a landing page, try to get people to show up, try to get some early interest as soon as you can.
Thanks, Chris. So I would say for the do, I would say keep it simple. I would say as technologists, we're often very tempted to add complexity where there isn't necessarily complexity there to begin with. I think a lot of the hard things about building something new is keeping it simple and making it simple for the users. So if we can keep our technology and our approach simple, we'll keep the experience simple, and therefore the barriers to adoption, to usage, lower. One thing I'd say about don't is don't take every single piece of every bit of feedback. Definitely look for the trends, definitely listen to your customers, definitely listen to the commonalities between them, but try not to tackle every single edge case. It goes right in hand with keeping things simple. If you try to tackle every edge case, you will end up with too much dealing with a broad approach and not enough going deep on your actual solution that you want to build.
Okay, sorry, I'm just getting, I think I just got lost, so bear with me 1 second. All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right, sorry about that. Okay, well, thank you very much to all three of you for your brilliant introductions and very useful do's and don'ts of early stage. We were meant to be joined by another person, but I'm not sure what has happened, so we can carry on. Quick reminder, I can see my other phone pinging from people on LinkedIn and Instagram, out of all places. But just a quick reminder for all of you that are on our live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions live. So if you do have any questions for our three amazing product and tech specialists here on stage, you would need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. There should be links on most of those live streams, But if for any reason you can't access that link, all you have to do is go to startuptoscaleup.club. That's startuptoscaleup.club. Look for today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 156. You click join. It's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email address. And then through that link, you can then join us here on Microsoft Teams. The quickest way to then get going is to type your question in the chat. We then give you the mic and you have the floor to ask our panels. There are no wrong questions. We're here to help people with product and tech queries you may have, whether that is your product roadmap or your design or your prototype or your testing or perhaps launching your MVP or maybe automation or a landing page or apps and all that jazz. They're literally, like I said, there is no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. If, however, your questions are not on product and tech, please save them for the other events we run. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. And on the second Friday of each month, it's legal, UK startup law. And on the third Friday of each month, it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can RSVP to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, what you might want to do, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, and operators. And it's basically a peer-to-peer and quite curated set of groups that we have there. I'm going to go to a question that was sent in to us. I see somebody has put their hands up. If you do want to ask a question, please type it in the chat first. Drop it in the chat first, and then I will happily give you the mic to ask the team. Now, the first question, I'll put it in the chat so the panelists can read it too, but I'll read it out loud for those of you on the live streams. Our EdTech startup in Cambridge offers interactive language learning tools, and I'm struggling to get my product and design teams aligned on data. Each department has its own metrics and goals, which sometimes conflict, making it hard to form a cohesive product direction. What steps can I take to foster a truly data-driven culture where we all follow the same KPIs and ensure these metrics genuinely reflect our core product goals? Are there recommended approaches to building consensus around KPIs? This is a very good question, but unfortunately not as good as if you were here for us to ask and understand at what stage your company is at, where you are in terms of numbers, and so on. But we can, I guess, we're going to have to work with the tools we've got. So again, since Adrian's been here before, we'll go with Adrian this time as well, and then we'll go on to Adam, and then Chris, please. Your 1 minute of glory starts now.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a good question, and it's a hard question to answer, I think, because I think it always boils down to just communication within your team. You don't really say how big the teams are in this question, but I know as you start to get...
Sorry, Adrian, I tried to look them up on LinkedIn and I can only see 2 people. So, and both of them have something called stealth. So right. I think they're trying to be clever.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, so getting back to the KPIs, I think basically my experience is try and keep it simple so that you measure something that's useful. And the KPIs could be, engagement with a customer in terms of how many times they've clicked something or moved through something on your site. But a good KPI, of course, is sales, revenue generation. But the message, I think, is keep it high level and also very much linked to what you want to achieve in your business. Measure it in the sense that there's no point having these KPIs and not being able to measure it accurately or consistently. So you've got to keep track of it. But ultimately, getting consensus on the KPIs has to be through communication, so that everybody in the team understands what your mission and vision is and what you're trying to achieve and the timescales you're trying to achieve it in. In terms of a software platform, I haven't come across any particularly. I mean, there's project management platforms and so on that people use, and we use Jira as a way of managing tasks, but you could potentially build in some KPI content in there potentially, I think.
Thanks. I think I think you hit the nail on the head there, Adrian, when you said making sure that it lines up with the company goals. And for me, that would probably be the place to start, is to take a step back from the design team, from the product team, and look at the overall organizational objective. Whether you have a vision, whether you have a strategy, whether you have a mission, or some mix of those, making sure that all the teams, design, product, and anybody else, engineering, marketing, are aligned behind those same goals is crucial here. That yes, the communication is absolutely critical, but as long as everybody's communicating on the same level around the same things, if there's differing assumptions or understanding of the mission, of the vision, of the goals, that's where you'll end up with this conflict potentially. And so I would start there.
Thanks, Adam. So yeah, going third is always the hardest role, I think, because a lot of the things have already been said. Yeah, like at risk of repeating what you've already heard, I think the buzzwords for me here are communication and visibility. So I think, as Adam has said, take a step back, start with the overall strategy of the organization. What is it that the company is trying to achieve? And then design KPIs, and you really need few KPIs. I would say the fewer the better, as long as they are actually measuring what your company needs to achieve, that everybody buys into. So I think it's key in that process to have the leaders of the different teams and the different departments agree not just on their own KPIs and what they should be, but on all of the KPIs as they fit together as a whole, representing the overall strategy. But equally important, I think, is the visibility of how you're doing against those KPIs. And I think that's all about a feeling of shared ownership. So circulate those KPIs on a weekly, at the very least monthly basis, even if they're bad, especially if they're bad. And I also think, if you possibly can, assign somebody to ownership of each one, so that the task of ensuring that it improves. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much to all three of you. That is pure gold, and really appreciate that. We've got, what have we got now? 37 minutes to go. That means we've only got time for a few more questions. There were some hands up earlier. If you still do want to ask questions, please type your question in the chat, and then we'll happily give you the mic to ask the team. We're trying to help founders like yourselves today with whatever questions you may have in terms of, again, there's hands going up and down. So we're here to help you with whatever questions you may have in terms of building that early stage product or tech. They can be on anything to do with it, whether it's product roadmaps, or perhaps we're talking about design or prototype or testing, or maybe automation, or perhaps your landing page, your app. Maybe you want to talk about full stack, low to no codes, launching your MVP, and anything in between or beyond for that matter. This is the place to ask it. But we're only going to be here now for 36 minutes to go. So do type your question in the chat here on Microsoft Teams if you want to ask any questions. If you are unable to do that, then unfortunately we can't help. Also, for those of you that are on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, we are unable to monitor your questions live. So if you have any, you'd have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is go to startuptoscaleup.club. That is our website. So startuptoscaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 156. You click join. It's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your to your email, and through that link you can join us here. And when you're here, then Bob's your uncle. So let's go on to the next question. We're a prop tech startup in London developing tools for landlords, but our prototyping process is chaotic, often producing unfinished concepts. How can we create a structured framework for rapid prototyping that includes validation criteria, so only the most promising ideas move into development? That's an interesting problem to have. And how about we start with Chris on this, then Adam, then Adrian, please.
Sure, thank you. I think this is a fantastic question because I think it's a very common problem. I mean, my first response is to not be too hard on yourself. I think creating new products and being creative in that way is a chaotic process by its very nature. So I wouldn't try to get too cross with this. Having said that, I think you can build some process around the process of prototyping. So take each concept or each idea and make it a structured project. And what do I mean by that? I mean, in an ideal world, if you had a larger team, which you probably don't, you could have different people assigned to different projects. If you can't do that because you don't have enough people, then I would separate time blocks to each individual project to ensure that they are seen through to completion. And I think key to any prototyping process is measuring and recording the feedback you get. So building a structured process around that. So whether it's tracking with a tracking tool like Jira or Notion or any of the others, first of all, run a structured program of progressing the idea in terms of time, but be very clear about measuring and structuring the feedback that you receive.
Cool, thank you, Chris. Yeah, and I'd agree with you on the idea that this is a good question, and that the prototyping is, by its very nature, quite chaotic. And so, when you say unfinished concepts, I actually think generally that's quite a good thing if your goal is to move fast and only move the most promising things through into development. Because if you take a lot of time to create a fully fleshed out concept, a fully completed idea, you're often testing multiple or many things at once, and so therefore the metrics you get back may be not as easy to interpret. So by testing unfinished concepts, you test a partial concept, you can understand the scope of what it is that's being tested, and the metrics may be more meaningful. And so there is this trade-off between finished concepts and speed, and it's sort of a balance. You kind of have one or the other. So I would tend to go towards the chaotic and go for the speed, and keep the metrics coming back on isolated concepts or partial concepts, and then combine those later down the line. Once you've got some numbers on the individual parts of those, you may end up with a good result as part of that. But yeah, I definitely agree with Chris. Don't be too hard on yourself with the chaos. It is part of the game.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And Chris, yes, I agree. I think with all of these things, the advantage of a bit of chaos is that you do move more quickly and you get rid of the ideas more quickly that you don't want. But I do sympathize, and I think a couple of things that could be useful to help is try and make sure you do have a project manager of some kind overseeing what's being developed. So in our company, a lot of that's down to me. I have a team of coders, but I oversee what I think should come through first. We use Jira as our project planning and tracking tool for the software development. We also use Figma for designing user interfaces and how the product might look or change as we add new features. That's quite good because that's a pre-software process. So in other words, we get a feel for what it's going to look like, how it's going to impact the site or the app before we commit to the coding. So that's useful, and that takes some of the pressure off the coding. And I would also say, try and get someone, even if you've got a manager, try and get someone to champion each of the features or new bits that you're rolling out. So again, in our team, usually one of the coders focuses on their bit. They will help the others and they will test the others, but by having that ownership as they take it through from, for example, mock-up, Figma, coding, testing, that way they've got the ownership of trying to push it through and defend it, if you like, as it starts to take shape.
Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. We'll now go on to the next question. This was 2, so question 3. Our retail analytics platform in Edinburgh has a multi-cloud setup, which is challenging to manage consistently. Could you advise on IAC tools that support multi-cloud environments, and what strategies can help us maintain uniform configurations across different cloud providers whilst minimizing drift? Wow, boy, this is all Greek to me, or Arabic or some other language. Maybe we can start with Adam, and then go on to Adrian, and last but not least, Chris. And if you can start explaining to the people that are not as clued on what IAC is, that would be great. Please, Adam.
Cool. So yeah, let's start with IAC then. IAC stands for Infrastructure as Code, and it's the basic idea that rather than using clicks on a user interface to create our infrastructure, we're going to write the infrastructure as a code file such that it's repeatable, reusable, and straightforward. And there's quite a few languages for running IAC platforms. So there's some more traditional ones like Terraform. There's Grunt. There's the hybrids like TerraGrunt. And I think generally these kinds of approaches are good because they allow you to use the same code across multiple different clouds, although they do have conceptual adaptations between what it means to run, for example, a serverless function in one cloud versus the other. So the AWS approach is called Lambdas. There's functions on Azure, and there's Cloud Runners in Google Cloud. So one of the ways to step back from the cloud specifics is to be a more generic approach and use things like Kubernetes. It does mean that your infrastructure is more generalized. It may not be as cheap to run, but it will be predictable. And in the current environment where people are actually worried about sovereignty, the ability to be able to move data, infrastructure, and applications perhaps off the American cloud providers, given the current global turmoil, may be something that your organization sees as a good risk hedging approach, even though it might cost you a little bit more in the meantime. So, I mean, there's other platforms like Pulumi as well, which will help with abstracting away some of the infrastructure. So there's quite a lot of choices. Are any of them the best? No, it really is about what is going to be the one that's going to work best. So you're going to have to take some time to do some research and find the approach that's going to fit both your organizational goals and your technical platform as well.
Thanks, Adam. Yes, I think I was next. And I don't have a lot of experience of running things across platform and trying to keep them in sync. We use Google Cloud actually in our case, but we do use Kubernetes, and we took that decision really partly for the flexibility that, like Adam just mentioned, that if we did want to move off Google Cloud in the future, we could quite easily, I think, shift to a different provider. So again, I don't have a lot of experience on that. I leave it up to my coders and DevOps to worry about the details. But I would say, when you're starting to roll out your product in the future, have a think about this as part of your initial phase, to think about how tied in you want to be with a particular provider, and what tools you can use to allow yourself to extract from one, add to another, or as in this case, that sounds like they're trying to run services on multiple clouds, multiple providers, and keep them in sync. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. So yeah, I think this is easily the most technical question. So managing multiple cloud environments is going to be an overhead for sure. And Adam has already named a lot of the provisioning tools that you can use, like Terraform, Ansible, Salt, Puppet. These are all the buzzwords. But I think managing multiple clouds is the sort of thing you should only do if you really need to, because it is going to give you this overhead. And I think the real solution is to move towards containerization, which again, both Adam and Adrian have said. That's going to be challenging if you're using serverless functionality, because each provider has its own variant of implementation. So I think it's a really challenging question, but it's one where I would really be asking myself, do I absolutely need to manage multiple cloud environments? And if you do, try and move towards a containerized architecture.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just a quick one, if we may. Why would somebody want to use all these cloud services at once? Any of you can pick this up, or all of you, whichever you prefer.
This is often for redundancy. If there's a geopolitical risk on one of the particular providers, or if there aren't data centers in the areas where you have customers that need low latency responses, you might need to pick and choose different data center providers in order to get the closest possible data centers to where your users are.
And also, I think people get some credits on these different platforms. And I'm aware of some people have got credits on more than one platform and are trying to use them up, keep the costs low in theory by using the various credits and startup schemes like on AWS.
I think you've hit
Google.
the nail.
Yeah.
I think you've hit
so they end up with
the
legacy systems. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking they're in bleeding Edinburgh. They're not in Kilimanjaro or somewhere, right? So I think you've hit the nail on the head. And I, as a founder, have tried to do that myself plenty of times before, so that makes sense. Right, shall we move on to the next question, fellas, or did you want to add anything else?
I'll just add one more, which is the different cloud providers do provide different proprietary models. So, for example, we have a lot of use cases of automated speech transcription, and each platform has its own pluses and minuses for their own proprietary models. So there are functionality reasons to do that.
I hear. Thank you very much. Well, here's a very silly question, and this is coming from me, so this is not sent to us. So I'm currently looking at plugging in an API into Companies House. This was advised to me by actually some people that are civil servants when we looked at kind of exploring how to work with a couple of government departments to help even more founders. And they said, well, why don't you just do this? It's quicker and way less bureaucracy that you would face by what we're trying to do together. Or they said, at least start with this, and then, in the meantime, still carry on trying to find a way to work with us. So I've tried to look at a couple of things, but I'm not a techie. Neither do I have a tech co-founder. Any of you have any idea of what would be the easiest way? Is this something that I could maybe use ChatGPT to help me kind of, I don't know, get an off-the-shelf kind of API and plug it in? Any advice on this? So basically, I'm trying to get down to understanding what would be the easiest way to plug in an API into Companies House, and is there a way to do it for free? And the end result basically is so that we can get live info of new companies registering, Nas reaching out and saying, come to this Q&A and ask Adrian, Chris, or Adam. Let's start. I guess we can start with Adrian, then Chris, then Adam. Any thoughts on this, fellas? And I'll put 2 links in the chat. I don't know if you had a chance to have a quick look at it, but from Companies House, where they try to explain it, how to do it.
Yeah. So it is possible. We haven't done it, but we do plan to do it with our software platform, and another company we work with has done it as well. In our case, it's to check that the company number is correct with the company name, and to sort of help with the certification process that we do. My understanding is that it is free, at least to a first level. So I don't know whether you get unlimited access, whether it sort of limits the number.
It is free for services like ours, I believe. This is what I think I was told. What I'm trying to understand is, can I build this for free rather than having to go to somebody else to do it?
Yeah, so, well,
is there like an off-the-shelf thing I can buy or something?
Okay, well, I'll let the others answer in case they've got that. In our case, our plan is to write something. Ours is an API-based application, so we're using APIs all the time. And we were planning, we've been talking about it for a while, to do an API call within our platform to Companies House and get the information in that way. So certainly possible. Maybe in a couple of, well, in a month or so, we might even have an answer for you offline, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, so assuming it's my turn, I think having had a very quick look just now at the Companies House API documentation, it's a pretty standard REST API. So you could create yourself an account there to get credentials. And then if you're only interested in new companies, looks like there's an endpoint where you provide the company number and then you'll get the public information about that company. And I happen to know, or I think I know anyway, that the company numbers are assigned sequentially. So you can just keep on adding one. And as long as you use your tool on a regular basis, you'll get all new company formations. But in terms of doing it yourself, if you're up for it, Anton, I would get yourself set up with a Jupyter Notebook that you can download and install for free, and that's a interactive Python environment. So you'll be able to write your own Python code and run it immediately. And in the web browser next to that one, open up ChatGPT, and between ChatGPT and Jupyter Notebook, I think you'd be able to get something going pretty quickly.
Yeah, and on another note from that, just to sort of take it up a level, there are a bunch of new app building tools that will allow you to put together your own app fairly quickly. And, you know, as pointed out, this is a fairly standard API, very easy to integrate against. And so I would look at a couple of tools. One of them is Lovable, based out of Sweden, same country where I'm based. And that basically allows you to build an app as a layperson, not as a developer, just by prompting. And it's pretty effective. And for simple use cases like this, I think you'd be able to get very far very quickly. And just last weekend, for example, I had a free weekend where you were able to prompt as much as you wanted with zero cost. I don't think we'll be running one of those again, but I certainly was able to build quite a lot over this last weekend just gone. There are other tools that are similar. So there's Bolt, which is from California, does a very similar kind of situation where it'll help you build an app just using prompting. And then there's more sophisticated development environments. You could use things like Cursor, which are probably slightly more intimidating for you as a complete non-coder, but for people who are just beginning to get into the idea of building apps, Cursor is probably the future and slightly more sophisticated as an approach. So yeah, pick your poison. There's definitely ways of building it, and it probably won't be free because you'll certainly have to buy some of the credits as they're used, or tokens as they're generally referred to access the LLMs that drive generating code. But you can certainly do it for a moderate cost.
What are we talking about when you say moderate, Adam?
Yeah, a few $100s, no problem.
Okay. And I think we've got all three answers, don't we? Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. We'll now go on to another question from London, and this is on property too. Again, similar to my question, I'm guessing. A property tech startup in London relies on APIs for property data updates. As we integrate more third-party APIs, we're finding that managing different data formats and authentication methods is becoming overwhelming. What best practices should we adopt to simplify API integration and ensure that our ecosystem scales reliably, even with multiple external APIs? Oh boy, sorry. I've just realized without meaning to, we've gone on to become pretty much an API Q&A today. Let's see who we get. I guess we can start with Adam, who's unmuted, then Chris, then Adrian, please.
Yeah, sure. So when you start accessing data from multiple different places. Yes, the connections can get overwhelming, but the data and integrating the data often becomes the challenge. And I would say that the most important aspect to consider here is really foundational, and that's the data model that you're integrating your data into. So having a really good approach to what are the core entities of your business and what are the attributes of those. Then when it comes to integrating data against that model, you then always have one single model that you're integrating new API data against, and you can simplify the process of acquiring and integrating new data against that. There is no silver bullet here, though. Integrating data and pulling data together from different places with different structures and different setups, it's a non-trivial problem. And so having a really good data architect will help you significantly on this processes. As for the API management, again, that'll come down to having some good developers to structure the code in such a way that you handle things like time. So when data is being integrated, what order each day or hours data gets integrated to have the least difficulty overall. Yeah, I feel for you. I've integrated property data before. It's quite a lot. It's quite varied in what you can get. It's a lot of different dimensions that the data can be spread across. It's not trivial.
Thanks, Adam. And yeah, likewise, PropTech is very close to my own heart. I actually sold my first business to Rightmove, which was a data analytics business. And so I know a fair amount about the mess that property data can be. So I would add a couple of things to what Adam has said. I think the data model is crucial, and agreeing the contract for what the data output will be upfront is very important. I would say in terms of architecture, I would try and make this fully serverless in order to scale, which is one of the things that I think was in your question. In order to do that, I would build a task queue, and you might have different services taking tasks from your queue of different types. So whether that's a different API endpoint that you're calling or provider, and that will ensure that you set it up right, process things in the correct order, and everything is managed and scales effectively. But yeah, I think this sort of problem is very common. So yeah, I think getting the software architecture correct upfront will serve you in the future.
Yeah, I don't really have anything further to add actually to both Adam and Chris's answer. I think they've been pretty comprehensive. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, we've got a question from somebody else here, so let me give them the mic. DT, who's David. Okay, we haven't seen David for a while. Are you audible, David? Can you hear us? I've just unmuted you. Okay, if not, I think I might need to make you a presenter, wouldn't I? Okay, let me come to me now. David, I've made you a presenter already. He's in a loud environment. Okay. All right, well, let's try and read this. A question from a prop tech startup. We're at 70% of product readiness. I'm ready to sell it as a service now, with human employees doing the mission 30% manually. That would cover the ongoing costs of product development with the day-to-day sales revenue. By the way, you can read this to panelists in the chat if you'd like, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams. This is for a mass B2B2C market. I'm also being offered opportunities from a few big clients to do dedicated licensed products for them. That would require all my resources to deliver POCs, but give us a significant influx of revenue in just 1 year. I'm facing a tough decision. Should I sell such services and get the product development from prototype to MVP to fully functional, to a fully functional product that is scalable, or do the dedicated products that don't scale? What is your advice and why that? Okay, I'll give you my quick 2 pence before passing you on to the experts. It is better to have an egg today than perhaps a chicken tomorrow. Now, if you've got enough money and you don't need to, and you can build this to what you want, without not being bothered at all, and hell yeah, go for it. But if you think you may struggle, just get some money into this. That money and that work will help you massively on at least 3 or maybe even 4 fronts that otherwise you wouldn't. Number one, it gets your name out there. Number two, it gives you an opportunity to learn a hell of a lot whilst getting paid. Number three, you can keep your lights on. And most importantly, number four, you can use that money to build this other product. But let's start with Adrian, then Chris, then Adam, if they'd like to add anything else. Fellas?
Well, I actually agree with you, Anton. I think if you've got an opportunity to get some sales revenue in now, I would do it. 'Cause the other opportunities that you talk about, particularly with large corporates, can take a while to actually come to fruition, even in terms of negotiation and getting those contracts over the line. Also, by doing your other work, you will be improving your platform, you'll be getting customer feedback, and that's got to help with these other opportunities as well. So I can see it's a hard problem. Obviously, what you'd like to do is be able to do both going forward. So try not to preclude the later opportunities by doing these earlier ones. In other words, don't cut them out, but definitely try and get revenue in sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Adrian. I would say that this is one of the hardest questions to answer, and actually, you know, my co-founder and I go back and forth on this very issue weekly, if not daily. I think the fundamental question you need to ask is, how different are the dedicated license products that you would build for the big clients? How different are those from your core offering, what you're trying to build in terms of your product? Can you learn, as well as getting the revenue from your big clients? So can you learn through that process to make your core product better, or is it simply a way of earning some cash? So I think for me, if the thing you're going to build for your big clients is too different, that it isn't really helping your underlying platform, it's hard to do, but I think it might be the right thing to do to turn it down. But that for me is the fundamental question, because in a startup, focus really is everything. And this is a very hard problem. So good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I think great
Very
advice
good
from
points.
both Adrian
Yes,
and Chris
Adam.
there. What I would add to this is I'd also, because what you haven't mentioned in here is what your investors or what the backing of the company is looking for. So if you're in the VC backed category, then foregoing the early revenue and looking for the long-term product positioning and going for the overall market, especially since you say it's a B2B2C market, which is potentially quite big, would probably be the right approach. On the other hand, if you're bootstrapped, or indeed if you're PE backed, you may find that earlier or steady revenue may be preferable to the people who are backing the business. And so that's one other aspect to take into account. And the only other thing I'd leave you is one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given by one of the CFOs I work with. And he said, revenue solves all problems. So that's another thing to take into account.
Yeah, that is a very good point. There's a chap that used to join us on the Wednesday call on Growth Q&A. He used to say that something along the lines of sales cures everything. So absolutely agree with you on that, Adam. We've got 7 minutes to go. Have we got time for one last question, fellas, or shall we wrap it up? What would you like to do?
I think we can handle one quick question.
Okay. Well, I hope we've helped you, David. I know you said you're in a loud environment and you can't talk, but thank you for your question. We'll now take one more. Good Lord, this is okay. Not interesting one. Okay, another one from London. So where are we? Copy and paste. Oh boy. This actually was sent by somebody who watched us on YouTube at some point. So, a wellness tech 1-3, I'm assuming one of 3 co-founders, based in London, seed stage, and they have a yoga instructor background. Whilst our users enjoy the content, we're seeing low engagement rates, especially amongst those with busy schedules. Well, how can you say they enjoy the anyway? Many users report that they don't have time to complete full sessions, which makes them feel like they're falling behind. How can we adapt the product to fit into the lives of busy professionals, potentially offering shorter, more flexible sessions without losing the depth and quality of our wellness practices? So this is way, obviously, producty rather than tech. But what would you do here? I think we've got Adam, who's still unmuted, so we can start with Adam, then Chris, then Adrian, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is a classic challenge where you've got some engagement, but not as much as you'd like. And so it often points to the fact that you're solving a problem just to the side of where the valuable problem is to solve as far as your users are concerned. And the fundamental response I would take to this is to go ask them. Go find out from them what they would consider to be a good solution to their problem, a better solution to their problem, one that would mean that they would be able to not feel guilty and spend more time using your app. It sounds really simple, but as I think it was Adrian pointed out before, talking to users is hard, but it is worth doing.
You hear, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, without knowing a huge amount about the product, I think there's probably a number of things you could do with your product. So could you invite people to set reminders? Could you shorten the form of your content or something like that? But I think Adam's advice is really key here, which is to understand why you're seeing the low engagement rates, and try and get the feedback from those users. And that's going to be a hard thing to do because those people, I guess, the problem you're seeing is they're too busy. So can you find some friendly users? Can you find a way to get that feedback at significant scale that you can believe it, and rely on them to tell you how to move your product forward? But I think you've obviously got something that's engaging enough already. So good luck.
Yeah, thank you very much. Last but not least, Adrian, please.
I think, as has just been explained, it's all about trying to understand what the customer needs. You've got there some idea. I mean, they're feeding back to you that they're not completing because potentially it's too long. What can you do about it? I mean, classically, depending on the number of people you've got and how difficult it is to reach customers personally and ask them the question, you could do this sort of A/B testing where you show one set of customers one type of product and another portion of the customers are different. And in this case, perhaps offering a shorter course or a shorter session in one group and seeing if they engage better. It sounds like your value proposition is that in-depth quality that you don't want to lose, but from what you've said, it sounds like although you think that is what you don't want to lose, your customers aren't appreciating that because they don't have time to appreciate it. So it's a problem where your A/B testing might show you can get away with shorter content, which means that you engage them for longer, and you might be able to upsell the longer content for those that are prepared to spend more money, spend more time. That could be the premium end of your product where you cash in on that, capitalize that a bit later. So yeah, again, not an area I'm that familiar in, but hopefully that gives you a bit of help.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm not sure, and that's why I sound like a bleeding broken record when I keep saying, please join us live to ask your questions, because we can give you better answers by actually asking questions back. Nevertheless, I would try and look at doing, well, first of all, as all 3 panelists have pretty much alluded to, you need to go and speak to your customers more than you are. And I think exit interviews are some of the most underrated underwhelmed and underused and understated practices in the startup world. And I think we need to do a ton more of them. But in terms of how I would go about this, I would probably look at doing three things. Again, I would love, first of all, I'd love to find out, do people get some kind of freebie or anything like that? So maybe there is a way for you to put this into three different packages. Number one, something that is extremely valuable and useful, and it is needed in whatever you're doing. I would focus on that. Number two, I would have something that is a bit longer, that has the essentials. It's entertaining, but it also leaves them wanting more. And number three, I would have the full one that you're having now. That way, some people will just get the hang of it and understand what you're doing by having the minimum. Some others a bit further than that. And the ones that actually do want to have this, they can have the opportunity to have the larger one. But again, without having you here, this is probably not the best advice in the world. So we are now 1 p.m., which means we are over the hour. I am grateful, very grateful to everybody that tuned in today, especially those that were here on Microsoft Teams. For those of you that did it via the live streams, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember that we are unable to monitor your questions there. So you'd have to join us live here in future sessions on Microsoft Teams. And you can do that via our website, which I can explain in a second. But just before I let them go, if they have time for a quick parting words for our audience, if we can quickly start with Adam, Adrian, and then Chris, please. Any parting words before I let you go, fellas?
I think from my perspective, a lot of the challenges we've looked at today come down to users and choices. If you've got a clear strategy and a clear vision, a lot of these choices become simpler to reason about.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Adrian.
and I was going to add, well done to everybody that is on this journey of launching and developing products. It is hard. It's very difficult to get sales. It's very difficult to get customer satisfaction. So keep at it, but also don't try and keep firefighting. Try and take a step back, as we discussed in the answers to some of the questions, where you trying to take a higher level view of what you're doing, try and work out overall, where are you heading? What is it that your products and services are attractive about? And don't sort of panic.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Chris, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I would just like to say it's been a real pleasure to speak with everyone today. I've really enjoyed it. And to all those out there building startups, you're doing something great and hard. And I think it's a phenomenal journey. So whether it works out or doesn't, well done for going on that journey and trying to put something out into the world. And in terms of your products, I would say keep testing, keep building, and keep selling. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to all three of you. I really appreciate your time and input today. A quick reminder before my parting words. If you want to join any future sessions, we run 6 of those 6 regular live audio sessions. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK startup law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. All it takes is for you to identify which session you want to join. Then you click join on that session. It's a quick registration that gets you the link to your email. And through that link, then you can join us here on Microsoft Teams. For those of you that would also perhaps like to join our WhatsApp community, we've got some amazing groups of founders and investors and operators. You can do that again on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. I'm actually going to copy and paste the link to our WhatsApp community here in the chat and Microsoft Teams too. And I guess as far as parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, have a great afternoon ahead of you. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Growth, where we will try and help some of you get your business from zero to hero somehow. Thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.